All right, so Tate, you put this inside of the document, and it is a little surprising, and it is the strength of schedule for the SEC teams. And of course, we're talking football here because they go, from 16 down to number 1, and at number 16, the Texas Longhorns played in the SEC championship game a year ago. So really good last year, expected to be really good this year. And their average opponent win total is the lowest in the SEC. At number 15, another team that made the college football playoff, Tennessee. So you go two teams that made the college football playoff, Texas and Tennessee, with what is expected to be the easiest schedules as far as win totals in the SEC. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. Embarrassment of riches there. And I guess, this isn't – it's a little bit different than the old days where you controlled your strength of schedule a lot by who you scheduled, out of conference, blah, blah, blah. So this is really just kind of the luck of the draw at this point, like who's good, who's bad, like the teams that are rebuilding that you're facing, where you're falling in your home, you're being the visitor at home or away, whatever it is. Like they take all of that into account. So really you got – two of the better teams last year in the SEC, just getting a little bit fortunate here on this scheduling. So, good for them, but, they can't really control everything that happens on their schedule or how people are ranking them on a strength of schedule.
You take your SEC schedule is obviously it's given to you, and you take it. And if you're fortunate enough to be Texas or Tennessee, or if you're not fortunate enough and you're Oklahoma, which we'll get to them, but so we go Texas, Tennessee, then Missouri's at 14. Ole Miss comes in at number 13. The Auburn Tigers come in at number 12. And then the LSU Tigers. Average opponent win total is 7.2. And it says here, LSU's conference slate will be slightly tougher than it was last year due to the locations of the Ole Miss and Alabama games being flipped, but it's still manageable. LSU gets Texas A&M and Florida in Baton Rouge. Both games the Tigers lost last year. You're going to Ole Miss, you're going to Alabama. Ole Miss is not as difficult of a place to play, in my opinion, than A&M or Florida. I think both those venues obviously are going to be more difficult to play in. Alabama, it's usually up for the LSU game, but still, like A&M and Florida, those are not easy road trips. And I'm not even just talking about the strength of that team. I'm talking about just the atmosphere and the venue that you play in. So it's kind of
it doesn't really matter. Those are the types of venues. It doesn't really matter how good the team is because those places are always going to be tough. And both those teams with LSU coming in are always going to look at it as some sort of a rivalry. Probably. I guess I would say Florida more than A&M, but they seem kind of equal as far as what the other opponent thinks about LSU as a rivalry. But those are tough plays. The Swamp is so. It doesn't matter if Florida's a 5-win team or a 10-win team. That place is going to be tough to walk in there and LSU to beat them always. Maybe not in the last 10 years or so because our record's pretty good against them, but still tough place to play. And we've gone into Kyle Field multiple times and been a tough game for us. So I don't know. Those ones are always for us are going to be tough.
To me, it's more like. Sure, where you're going, but it's also like where it's at in the schedule, how many games are butted up against each other, is it spread out more than anything, more than where you're playing and who you're playing, because you play in the SEC, you're not going to have oftentimes just an easy path to get to the finish line. And so for LSU, the thing that is going to be different, you do face Florida on September the 13th. That is always an October game. It is now the third game of the year. So you go at Clemson, Louisiana Tech at home, Florida at home, then you get Southeastern at home before you go to Ole Miss. So you get them at home, but I would say that's a tough stretch. I don't know if I'd go Clemson, Tech, Florida, and no disrespect to Louisiana Tech, you're just sandwiched in between those games because you get Ole Miss at the end of that before you get a bye week. Then after the bye week, it's South Carolina at home, at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M at home. That's a pretty tough 3-game stretch. I'd probably go there with the toughest one, because then you get a bye week. Then it's at Bama, Arkansas at home, Western Kentucky, at Oklahoma. But I would say South Carolina, at Vandy, and A&M might be your toughest stretch. So, yes, the opponents and going on the road, there is some difficulty to the schedule. But you get a lot of good games at home. Right now, at Vanderbilt, who knows? Diego Pavia, we saw teams go in there last year. Alabama come out with a loss. Texas had to fight till the very end against Vandy at home. So those aren't guarantees. But the opponents are tough, but you kind of got a favorable draw of how many of those heavy hitters you have in a row, because right now I don't think, because of a bye week between Ole Miss and South Carolina, you're not going to face two preseason top 25 opponents back-to-back.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how I feel about the stance here of, is the stretch more difficult because you're facing good teams back-to-back? Is it more difficult than, facing maybe a couple better teams with like the lower schools sandwiched in between? And my feelings against scheduling smaller schools on the schedule anyway. I don't love it. I don't think it will or should ever really change. I just don't love it as a fan and like as a viewer of football, right? But as a player, I think I prefer the games stacked up on each other, one by one, because even though you're playing a Southeastern or Louisiana Tech, it doesn't mean you're getting extra work in for the next team.
Yeah.
You're making the assumption that it's going to be a less stressful game. It's going to be lower impact on the body, which that might have a little bit, but it's not like they're going out and playing two-hand touch or anything. I mean, it's the same situation. You're just not quite as whether you admit it or not, or subconsciously or even aware of it, the preparation's a little bit less. You're not playing as hard in those games as you do for the big schools. And it's just the human nature. That's just the nature of the beast, all right? So I think I would rather the games stacked up on each other. Because every week you're focusing on an opponent. I get it. Maybe they hit a little bit harder, maybe. But, it's still college football. Whether you play at South Carolina, you play at Louisiana Tech, you're still a college football athlete. That's going to hit pretty hard. Or, you just might not have the skills that somebody else has. So, like the speed or the hand-eye, whatever it is. But they're still big, strong, and fast. We're still hitting. We're still taking. Our bodies are still taking and beating, right? So I think I would prefer that. So I would say that stretch. I would say the first stretch of the game, to me, or the first stretch of the year, excuse me.
At Clemson, Louisiana Tech at home, Florida at home, Southeastern at home, and at Ole Miss.
Yeah, that stretch to me is probably the most important, especially over that middle where you're what would we say, South Carolina.
You got South Carolina, Vandy, and A&M. Vandy being on the road against the Commodores in Nashville.
I think just once you get in like SEC play and you're playing good teams every single week, you tend to get in a rhythm, right? Like it's just more of a rhythm of, all right, this is SEC play. We're in a rhythm. We got a good team every single week. This is the preparation, blah, blah, blah. I think with the smaller schools, the preparation is a little bit different.
Louisiana Tech game is going to be packed. I don't know if y'all have talked to people, like everybody I talk to, when they start talking about football season, I guess because it is the first home game, you start off on the road. Everybody I know is like, yeah, we'll be there for the Tech game. We'll be there for the Tech game. You think that same referee that was backpedaling and tried to beat me into the end zone is going to be calling the game again?
He's been training.
There's no doubt.
He's been training since that day.
Flipped his hips. Good God.
Well, did we ever get like a backstory on that guy?
No.
How many years did you play in the league?
I don't know, but we need to.
That dude was legit.
The transition he made was pro.
Dude, it is so great when you see the clips. You see him every year in every sport, but especially football, when there's like a long play, a break-off run. Like you got that one referee that's like, yep, this is what I've been training for. Watch this, boys.
A lot of those guys are former players.
Yeah,
one of my teammates, Antoine Cason, played at Arizona. Actually played against us here. Jamarcus threw a pick to him. It was like the only thing Arizona did that day. But he was our first-round pick in San Diego, and he had a long career, 8-9 years in the NFL. but he became a referee, and he started like in high school and college, and now I think this might be his first year where he's getting some NFL action.
That's awesome. Good
Yeah.
for him. Came up through the ranks.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so funny when you see those guys because you got some, like you'll have an NFL punt returner like just streaking down the sideline. You got a referee running side by side with him. Like he's not at that point. He's not looking for anything. He's not looking for any penalties. He's just trying to show out on TV.
Trying to get on camera.
Like watch this, kids.
Yes.